most people default to the S&P 500 for doing their index investing in their retirement accounts and even some brokerage accounts. And honestly, it's not a bad choice at all. But I don't use it as my main investment, and I'm going to explain to you guys today why. So first of all, I do work in finance. I work at corporate 9 to 5 in finance, but I'm not a certified financial professional. This is not investment advice. This is not financial advice. I created this channel just to share my thoughts on finance topics, maybe some other things, gaming, computer related, and just life in general. And I listen to a lot of channels similar to myself, but most of them talk about VOO and some other things that I disagree with. And I wanted to put my hat in the ring and kind of be a voice on the other side of the spectrum with some things, not all things, but some things. So I do have a bit of a cold, so my voice may sound different in a few weeks. I'm a little nasally right now, but we'll get through that. So the first reason is diversification. And I also want to say, I don't think VOO is bad whatsoever. I don't think anybody is stupid for putting their money in there. In fact, I think it's a very wise thing to do. But I do think that there is something better, and that would be VT, the Vanguard Total World Stock ETF. And the rest of the video is going to be about the reasons why. So reason one is diversification. VOO and VTI are all U.S. stocks. So for anyone that maybe is new, VOO is the top 500 U.S. companies by market cap. So the biggest U.S. companies, the top 500 of them. And VTI is all publicly traded stocks in the U.S. But I lump them in kind of the same bucket because even VTI, 85-ish% of it is made up of VOO, which is just the top 500 companies. So yes, VTI is more diversified than VOO, but I don't think it's enough to really make a point for this video. And with that being said, there's a lot of theoretical conversations you can have about VT versus VOO. This argument is going to be the standard ones that anybody getting into investing could understand and could replicate. So happy to argue more advanced stuff in the comments. Feel free to drop any comments that you have down below. But yeah, getting back to it, diversification. So VT is all publicly traded stocks across the globe. That is including the US. So what you're getting in VT is diversification of just purely companies, but you're also getting country diversification, you're getting currency diversification, and you're getting country governmental diversification, which I really value all those things. It's kind of, there's a saying out there, I don't really remember who said it, but essentially diversification is the only free lunch in investing, meaning that it's the only thing that you can decide that will almost guarantee better risk adjusted returns, meaning I'm taking less risk for either the same return or a higher return. So I'm a big believer in that. I'm a Boglehead. I believe in buying the whole haystack. Bogle obviously was a big US guy. He kind of only believed in maybe having 25% of your portfolio be in US or in international stocks, but I believe in buying by market cap. And with that being said, currently US stocks are about 60% of the total globe. International is about 40, give or take. So if you're all US, you're missing out on 40% of the market roughly. And that's if you're VTI, which has the small and mid cap stocks, not just VOO. So that's why VT, first reason, diversification. You're getting all the countries, all the stocks, and that helps me sleep at night, gives me some less stress. The second reason that I do VT is what I call the always second principle. So if you buy VOO or if you buy all international stocks, right, there's always a fear that one's going to outperform the other, right? Am I going to miss out on international because I'm all US? Or if I go all head first in international, am I going to miss out on US stocks, right? And that's kind of the beauty of VT, is that it's auto adjusting, right? So as one market outperforms the other, VT will automatically adjust, which is just the best for simplicity, for not changing things, not tinkering with things. And I know that no matter what happens in the global markets, I will always be second. So sure, sometimes US is going to outperform and I'll be looking at it and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I missed a few percentage points. But there's other times, which we will get into in the future of this video, where international actually outperforms. So again, that one's a little bit simpler. I just call that the always second principle. I know that no matter what happens, I won't be last, which I value a lot. My biggest fear is being last. I don't care as much about being first. My fear is being last. The third reason is behavioral simplicity. So this kind of goes in a little bit to what I talked about in chapter 2, but VT keeps me from tinkering with it. When I was all S&P 500 and I started learning about international stocks, which, by the way, if you want to look into international stocks, VXUS is the ETF for all non-US stocks. So that is a good place to look if you're curious about this. I would always be tinkering and looking at how international is doing versus US. Oh, it's up 0.5%. The US this week, like, what does that mean? And I would just constantly be looking at it, and that's never good, especially if you're a boglehead passive investor. You don't want to be looking at the market all the time. You don't want to be always concerned with how you're performing versus whatever you're comparing yourself to. So VT, again, I've already mentioned this, but VT essentially automatically adjusts as performance changes. So as international does better, the VT composition goes higher in international and lower in US. It takes time, even if like VT VXUS actually outperformed this year, and it takes time to really see a huge change, but it is always micro adjusting, which I value a ton. It keeps me from having to tinker with it. The next reason, outlook and performance. So for a long time now, the US has crushed. It has outperformed. Going back to the start of 2025, international hadn't had a year that had beat the US in a long time. But if you look at this chart, you will see there are constant cycles of US outperformance into international outperformance, of US outperformance into international outperformance. And I don't want to miss either of those cycles, I suppose. And again, that's the beauty of VT, is I won't. This is actually the first year where you'll see here on the charts where international actually outperformed the US for the whole year. There are some months, like even last year where international did better, but even 2024, US still outperformed. This is the first year that I have seen where international has actually outperformed on a rate of return basis. So is this the start of another cycle where international outperforms? Or is it just a fluke year? I don't know. I don't really care. Either way, I'm going to be getting the growth from both sides. And that's something that I value. Again, there's a lot of overlap here in tying in, but I know that no matter what, I will never be last behind VOO or behind VXUS. So just something to consider. And the other thing is, I almost forgot, a lot of analysts are predicting international outperformance for the next decade. That is not necessarily a reason to buy VT. Analysts predict a lot of things that are wrong all the time, but it is an interesting factor to consider that there's a lot of predictions that the U.S. market's inflated, that prices are too high, and that EPS or earnings per share is just out of control in the U.S. markets, and in international, it's been cheap. But it's been cheap for a long time, so I don't really make that argument. And the last chapter, again, there is some overlap here, but I think these are all distinct reasons, even if there is a little bit of overlap. So the last thing I want to say is avoiding a lost decade. So if you look at 2000 to 2008 or 2009, I believe, the market was essentially flat. If you were dollar cost averaging into the market where you're just consistently investing with your paycheck, you could have had some growth or losses, but just purely if you had $10,000 in the market in 2000 to 2008, you would have had $10,000 in 2008. And that scares the daylights out of me because that's 10 years of growth that you would have missed. And during that time, emerging markets, which is international markets, not all international markets are emerging markets, but some of them are. Emerging markets had like 150% rate of return in that time. And international actually outperformed, which I showed you on that chart earlier. So that's kind of my last reason, is I want to avoid that if at all possible. And if all markets have a lost decade, then, again, I'm never last. I'm always in second place. If VOO, if the US has another lost decade and international performs well, then I'll still get some of that growth and performance from that. So I value that. And lastly, just kind of closing thoughts. Again, VOO is not a bad choice whatsoever. If it works for you, that's great. If that's what you have in your 401k and you don't do a lot of personal Roth IRA or traditional IRA investing, then stick with VOO. You're going to be fine. This is just the setup that lets me sleep at night. I don't tinker with it. I don't overthink it. And I'm very happy with how it's performed this year. And I'm kind of thinking it's going to go that way, but who knows? That's what markets are. They're unpredictable. They're sometimes irrational. So that's just how I do it. I hope this case made sense. If you want to argue any specific points, feel free to drop it in the comments. I love talking about this stuff, so I'm happy to either debate or elaborate on any of the points that I made. So feel free to comment, like. Appreciate you guys checking this out, and thanks for watching.